Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I am your humble host, Mr. David Null, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And I continue to pray each and every day that each and every one of you, your friends, your family, and all of your relatives will learn how to accept and receive the healing, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the blessings from the universe. Now, with that said, um, I don't normally, dabble too much in current policy or discuss I'll flip on it off and on through some of my videos in a discussion. But in this last week or so, there's been some information that in the title, I put on the minor channels. Now, I was going to use the word back channel, but that's not really true. It's just more minor channels. I consider a minor channel me, but there are some channels that have 3,000 subscribers, and but anyway, and just to be safe, I'm not going to name drop anybody. But most of the people that I have seen um, they're all on YouTube, so you can just kind of do a search. Um, I might name drop a couple of channels, but anyway. Hey, Richard, how are you? Good evening. Blessings to you and yours and anybody you come in contact with. But so anyway, this thing about the China syndrome. Now, I remember way back in somewhere years ago at 68, everything is behind me, So, but I remember, I think, a movie or a book or something called The China Syndrome. So, um, I'm not sure whether or not this video this is not intended to be like whatever the movie or the book was. Anyway, so moving on with that, there's a lot of discussion about China, not just politically, but here a week or so ago, there was supposed to have been uh, a Moab, a mother of all bombs, dropped in northern Maine on some type of underground facility that now these are the reports, okay, that it blew up 50,000 Chinese soldiers who had been trying, were some type of frontage or whatever to move into the United States from the Canada side, from the north, where most people wouldn't have thought about that. But so when I first heard that news, I said, that sounds interesting. We'll see. 50,000 Chinese in one location. I mean, that's more than the size of the population here in Colquitt County, Georgia. So it's like, and would you really have that many folks in that, confined an area? So there were reports out that yes, it was an underground facility. Yes, it was 50,000. But then there's some other folks who are ex-military intelligence folks that I've been listening to for years and watching, and some of their prognostication have been really accurate. So anyway, in hearing more information, because I always like to, kind of chew my cud on some of this information, but as it's coming up and other folks talking about strange troop movements, in areas, and the what a lot of folks, and even Nancy Pelosi's been pushing this, the continuity of government, the COG as it's called. And a lot of people don't understand that. But if for some reason the United States is under some kind of imminent attack, then the president can, or, the government can go into this continuity of government. And everything changes when they go into this COG. Okay. I mean, it's sort of like a Wars Powers Act. They can arrest you if they think, without a warrant. They can come in your house and, if they think you're doing the bad stuff or whatever. So a lot of things just get thrown out the window. And so they're trying to keep everybody closed in for a reason. But anyway, what their reason is to terrify us, to keep us from talking to one another. and to not being prepared. So in some of the discussions that are out there now, that there could have been 50,000 Chinese, but spread all along the Canadian border. Now, I've been into Canada a couple of times, and I'm by no means an expert on Border Patrol. But it seems to me that anybody with a little bit of efficiency and a little bit of know-how and maybe some money could place 50,000 Chinese soldiers along a border. Because with the people that when I was in Canada, there were a lot of Russians there. There were a lot of Pakistani type folk, not being rude, but, Indian, Pakistan, and I was just surprised at how, you know, it was hard to find like a white Canadian if hey, so, but there were all these different ethnic groups, ethnicities that seem to be working well together in Canada. So, it's like very interesting, talking about a melting pot. So this idea when I got back home down here, people were like, all Canadians, like hockey, and they're pure white because there's so much snow and everything. And I was like, that is not what I found at all. I found all these different mixed races. So my point to that is, with all these different mixed races and so forth already in Canada, that, are residents or, so it wouldn't be hard to move that many people, subjectively. I mean, there are a lot of Chinese descendant type folks down here in the South, but I don't consider them to be having a gun. But what's to say that they're not? I mean, in Vietnam, they had, the North Viet Cong were working in bars and restaurants, and, and then when the big day came in Hanoi, I'm sorry, in Saigon that year, the Tet Offensive, people were coming out from underneath the counters, and, and people that they probably did business with, suddenly became the enemy. So we think to our, look, I'm not trying to spread fear, but the interesting part of these discussions by these ex-military folk are like, listen, they know through their friends and watching the news and back channels, so to speak, that there is something going on. So my idea in this is like, well, wait a minute. So here's the thing. We think to ourselves, well, how could China get into the United States? Well, the governor of Georgia and some other folks up there in Hotlanta are being accused of having ties with Chinese money because of the virus thing, right? And some masks and things. And there seems to be some shenanigans going on. So with that said, there's the supposition is, if you've got a governor who is pro you, meaning China, and that you've had taken money, or if that it would be easy for that governor to allow things to happen within a state and not, just, keep your eyes closed kind of thing. So not that I've seen any, weird things happen, but if them folks want to come in from the coast, they're going to have to come in on the coast of Georgia. There's a lot of wetland and swamp. They might get in there, but it ain't going to be nice. If you're not used to living in the Georgia swamp, they're going to be in trouble. So trying to come in from the coast, that don't mean that they can't, but I'm just saying. But it's been interesting that here recently, and it's been reported on the big news, that there is, several carrier task force, both in the Atlantic off the coast and in the Pacific off the coast, just within the last like 2 weeks kind of thing. And where, we're normally patrolled and everything. No, there are carriers out there like on patrol with the supporting naval ships around it. Now, that's just curious for a bunch of reasons. So what if, and we know that, JB, the pres-elect, going to use code here, y'all. So JB and company, um, that have ties to China and with the Ukraine and other things like that, right? And so news is coming out that the FBI knew about some of this stuff as as much as over a year ago, about this time of year last year, right? And so that before the elections and everything like that, that there was information contained within the FBI and the CIA with these folks' connections to other outside countries. But yet they're all turning their finger and pointing it at Trump and screaming Russia. Well, now in thinking about this, this has been a year and a half ago. I watch Russian television, keep up with what's going on over there, not crazily, but it's interesting to listen there to their point of view. About a year and a half ago or so, Putin was in a live, and question and answer session. And the question was asked basically, would we ever want to invade the United States? And he chuckled and he laughed and he composed himself after a few seconds, and he said there are twice as many people in the United States, and many of them have more guns than we do. Why would the Russian people want to invade the United States? And ever since I heard him made that statement, it's like, go Google how many people in Russia and how many people in the United States that are documented. And we go, what? So, but how many people are in China? Okay, 1 billion or more, not 200,000, 200 million or something. No, 1 billion people. So, it would be really easy for them wanting to would they have a reason? Yeah, and there's 3 times as many of them as there are of us. And in the right circumstances, these folks could overrun us like ants. If you think about population, now there are a lot of women and children and blah, blah, blah. But to the point, there's a lot more Chinese that could overrun us than any Russian thought, right? So we have been being geared to look at this smaller population who wants to rule the world, which is not the case. They're having enough trouble with their own country, but I can see why they'd be worried about us because of all the people, the KGB know that JB and Son and company and the Hitlery folks and all them, with all their ties to other governments and stuff and the laundered money and everything that's been kept under wrap by a failed FBI. They haven't failed themselves or the people they work for, but they have failed the United States. And on so many levels, every one of them SOBs are, should be guilty of treason because they have withheld vital information to the United States people, not just to the government, but to us, you and me. And we should be really pissed about that. And I am, let's write our congressman and say, we need to the FBI needs a house cleaning, seriously, top down through the bottom and start over if they have to. But this nonsense of withholding information from the American people that is vital, like this, I'm not sure if it's a senator or a congressman, but Swalwell, okay? The FBI knew back in 2013 or 2017 or something like that, that there was this Chinese woman that was sleeping with him, right? And she's a Chinese spy, and they let her go back to China. So she helped him get elected in his last election, not this one, maybe, but invited certain staff members into his office that were introduced by this Chinese woman, who's hauled rear end. And the thing is that the FBI went to this person, Swalwell, and told him, but they've been withholding all this information for all that they knew about this. So here's a senator literally sleeping with the enemy, and they haven't told any of us about it. Has he been fired? He was on a subcommittee for planning, military stuff, right? What? So we got a mole sleeping, sleeping with the enemy. And, all of these things that the Swalwell put out about Trump and this, that, and the other thing is all misinformation to have us look at Russia as the bad guys. When China has a lot more reasons and capabilities to hack the United States, which here recently, in the last few days or so, big thing on the news, government agency has been hacked. Oh, it must be the Russians. Misdirection by these same people that the FBI have known are somehow corrupt and are still chairman of subcommittees. Now, we got to ask the question, could this actually be true that there are subversives literally working for the Chinese? Now, I was thinking of the picture of, how many Chinese would it take and how they're going to get into the country. Okay, they could come in from Canada. They're going to freeze their ass off this time of year. But, they've got technology and stuff. What is a bigger worry for a lot of us is that they could be in Mexico and could come up from the southern border very easily in the United States. And if those of you remember the Jade Helm drills back in the day, that was because of they were having issues and fears about a southern invasion, not by Mexico per se, but by other forces joining up in Mexico and joining up with the drug cartels who've got a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of firepower too. And they're really close to our southern border with no Mexican intervention, if you know what I mean. So, but the idea, though, that they're closing ranks and that there are carrier groups off the coast of the United States at present, which there normally isn't 3 carrier groups on both coasts. A lot of troop movements and things were moved from the interior section of the United States to both coasts. So some of these analysts are saying that Georgia, because of its Atlantic side thing, but Georgia's going to be hard to get into. I've lived down here for the last 50 years. I'm here to tell you, if they think they're just going to pull up in some river or something, and nah, they're going to be invited by swamps and skeeters and alligators. And I don't know if they have alligators in China, but to the point though, and moccasins and, diseases. And so good luck to them. But there's a lot of people who are used to living down here that could pick them folks off like the Southerners did in the old days. So the South, if people think that the South ain't ready, we were ready for another invasion from the North, but we never thought it would be from the Chinese. Just saying. But Florida, because it's bounded by water almost all the way around, and, Georgia and Alabama are the 2 states that border it on the north side, because, Tallahassee ain't but 65 miles from me, south of here. So, but if they think they're going to come into they're going to meet a lot of swamps. And there are a bunch of swamp people down there that have AK-47s and all kinds of rifles, shotguns. And there's even more critters down there in the swamps around Apalachicola and up in there. So good luck if they think they're going to come in from there and, quote, take over some land. Yeah, they don't know the terrain like we do and the ins and outs and stuff. But here's one thing that they have discussed, and which is very true. If, for example, a sub were off the coast of anywhere with a couple of missiles that it would be very difficult to shoot down, and even if they weren't nukes, they were just, high-powered weapons, that they could take out certain interstates. Now think about if one team got in, like you see in the movies, with some C4, and they took out a couple of overpasses on some of our key, routes going north, south, east, and west. You blow up 5 bridges on some of these interstates, you're really going to, especially if it goes over a river, right? So you're really going to hamper travel of folks up and down, supplies going in and out, that kind of thing. So if a good team of folks got smuggled in with some C4 and hit some of these bridges, it would create a lot of havoc without having to like have this invasion force. So the first thing that they would do would be to bottleneck us so they could contain us more. So, there's some of these folks that are saying that if you live up in the Northeast, get the F out as soon as possible because there's some strange stuff happening up there in them woods in Maine and stuff. So, anyway, but living down here in the South, oh well, they could come in and take over along the beaches and so forth. I don't think they have any idea. A lot of retired military live in Florida, and they may not look like it, but I've talked with some of these folks over the year, known them over the years, and these old boys was Marines and paratroopers and plus just north of us we've got Fort Benning, we've got Fort Rucker there that is near here. We've got the Savannah base over there in Savannah. We've got MacDill Air Force Base that is right over not too far from here in Valdosta, and so there are a lot of troops and a lot of airplanes and a lot of stuff that's already down here. So as far as them trying to take over Georgia and stuff, they might have to have some very interesting capabilities in order to do that. However, a couple of strategically placed bombs, not nukes, but just bombs, could do a lot of damage and throw a bunch of stuff off of out of whack. Plus, they're discussing that Cuba would be the perfect jumping off point because we don't really, we've got Guantanamo Bay, and there is surveillance on the Isle of Cuba, but do we really know who is coming and going into Cuba for really? And if we've got folks who are literally sleeping with the enemy, then those folks, especially when they're chairmen of subcommittees and committees relating to intel, military movement, and so forth, are there, 100,000 Chinese sitting in Cuba somewhere? Just ready to to come anywhere. And how long would it take for them to take off in Cuba and be in Tampa? Not long. A few years back they did some black helicopter stuff, and the people in downtown Tampa freaked out because there are these guys dressed in black rappelling out of helicopters into the downtown area. And so they've been rehearsing this for a while. MacDill Air Force Base has a lot of underground facilities out there. And when I was growing up, we, as a Boy Scout, Cub Scout mostly, we'd go out there, and they had special days. We could sleep overnight out there. We'd get to go and eat in the servicemen in the mess hall. They showed us video. They had they took us out on the runway and watched us but that was during the Vietnam War. But so the Strategic Air Command, SAC. So there was a lot of stuff that we knew from the old days that might not be known now. Like, there's an underground base in Thomasville. It's been there since World War II or before. But what a lot of people don't know about the Florida Panhandle area, just FYI, is that the invasion of Normandy, they practiced it, guess where? In the Panhandle of Florida, because some of those the barrier islands. I'm trying to think of the one, but it's like there's Alligator Point, St. George Island, but there's another one that there's no bridge to, but they used to practice landing craft there. And, so that's the history of what they call the Forgotten Coast down around Carabel, Apalachicola, and back up all the way around back towards Perry, Georgia. But that's a lot of swampland. I'm telling you, there's a lot of swampland. And there are a lot of people that have had guns for a long time, mainly because of, swamp critters getting in their places and stuff, And, and for self-protection too. But folks down there, they know one another. And you might not agree with somebody, but if somebody was gonna, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, you know what I mean? So all these rednecks who might have had issues before are going to band together. And between two different rednecks, think, the Hatfields and McCoys, if they thought that a third, they would get together if the revenuers went up there to mess with their stills. Both of them would work together because neither one of them liked the revenuers, right? So in this sense, anybody who ain't them, and we can argue amongst ourselves because we're neighbors, but you want to come in here and invade our these arguing neighbors just became friends for life because we're defending the same place. And some of these folks, I'm just saying, if if the folks that think this could happen, and if they're like going to pick on Florida, they can, in my opinion, they can have Florida. But if they think they're just going to like walk in and take over, now it's more likely they will starve out the people in Florida. Seriously, all they got to do is cut off some interstate traffic and keep supplies from going so far south, and people would start eating each other in a heartbeat because Miami and Fort Lauderdale and all down there, if you cut off any of that supply line from the north, them folks would be in trouble. You could airlift it in, you could do this and that, but to the point though, all these supply lines that are already established could be easily disrupted. So here's my thing, and one of these analysts that I've listened to for quite a few years, he was like, you don't know who you're working for. So if our governor in the state of Georgia, and there is some serious indictments and stuff going on at the state capitol with Brian Kemp and some of the things that he did with the election, and why would a Republican want to throw an election for a sitting Republican president? A lot of people are scratching their heads at that one, right? But if he's got ties with China, along with some of these other folks, then hang on. So we've got people actually working on the inside. Now, until the last 2 days when I got some more information in, I was like, I'm still just going to watch this. But how much of this information has actually made it out to where other people actually get this? And here's the dumb thing about it. Some of these ex-military folks who have worked at a higher tier of intelligence within the armed forces are saying this is not just possible, but it's very likely that they could and would try something, because if the folks who have ties to China, the folks who all wanted to pass, the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership thingy, and Trump said nope. So he pissed them folks off right away, right? And all those folks who supported it because they had ties and all this stuff was going to be mingled. Then Trump turned around and said, I want to make America great again. We're going to start making stuff here in the United States because there's a lot of stuff that has moved to other countries. And I absolutely agree with that, where there are other things I don't agree with Trump, but let's start making stuff here again. Absolutely. There were 800 people that lost our jobs here in South Georgia because they moved our jobs to Mexico through the NAFTA deal. And all the sewing plants that went to Venezuela and the places in South America and places in Mexico, all the people who were displaced and put out of work here in America because they wanted cheaper labor. And it's been going on for a long time. And it has severely hurt South Georgia over the years. And it's taken away it's taken away part-time jobs that some of us older people could have went in and worked in the evenings to, as a mechanic on sewing machines or stuff like that. They call you and go, hey, we got a couple of machines down. Can you come in and work for a few hours? Sure, be right there. That doesn't exist anymore. So things that I had sort of depended upon in my retirement was getting a little bit of part-time job, working at a machine shop or something like that. There ain't none. All the machine shops are gone. All the places that used to do stamping and melding and that all gone. We had an aluminum plant up in Tifton. From what I understand, it's still not operational. Nobody's working it. But somebody in the chat room a day or so ago talked about how they were building a new smeltering plant. And I'm like, they got one here in Georgia. There's the railroad tracks right behind it. There's got all this infrastructure that's already there, but they'd rather build a new plant as to come back in. And there's nothing wrong with the building. It's a steel building, nice size, and it's got all this access already. Are they? No, they're going to build another plant, destroy more property someplace else, destroy the environment, and pollute another area when there's already something there. Anyway, so, but you got to scratch your head and ask, what are these morons up to? And the more I look at it, I go, some of these people actually might be crazy enough to do some of this stupid shit, Now, to some of the folks that I know that I've talked with up in British Columbia, that there are whole areas, and even I will drop this name, Stuart Swerdlow and his channel. He's on YouTube and website and all that, but he was saying, that he did a thing up in Washington, British Columbia. And he said, when we went there, he said, it was all Chinese. And he said, I don't have anything against the Chinese people, but he said, I just couldn't believe that there were just whole neighborhoods and things. And he said, I thought I was in Hong Kong or something. And so, folks on the Western side could very easily, if there were Chinese nationals who had become residents or come over or whatever, if they just, if the word came out that, okay, gang, take it over. So with the shutdown, it'd be real easy. If businesses are closed and places are burned out and people are afraid, and so people that are already embedded could just say, okay, we're all on the same side and we've been here for years. Yep, we're part of the conspiracy and y'all didn't see it coming. But for many folks, though, like the Dark Journalist and the lady that's on there a lot, Catherine Austin Fitts, she has talked about how the Chinese have been buying up property all over the United States. And we've got some acreage just up the road from me on the other side of the bridge up there that were owned by a couple of German guys. I don't know if they were brothers, but two Germans. And, so it's like, well, so how is a German able to buy property in the United States? Yeah, I thought you had to be a resident. Well, maybe they are a resident, but however they did it, so, but here's the thing, if them Germans don't come back, then that land just becomes part of the county and, and they're never here. So there's no house or anything. So it tells me, and I've gotten permission that if I wanted to go walk the property, and we have wild hogs up here and it's open season, for wild hog up here. And boy, and there's quite a few of them too, I tell you. But anyway, but I was told that I could hunt wild hog up there anytime I wanted to. So it's like 250, 300 acres just north of me up the river. So anyway, so folks from other countries have been buying property for a long time. And I mean, even locally. Now, there's some wonderful Chinese folk, and I don't mean to refer to them I don't mean this in any type of derogatory manner. But they've been a part of the community in Thomasville for a long time. And, them folks down there at the restaurant, I love their food. They've always been kind. They've always been polite. And they have been part of the community for a long time. But they have relatives that come in and out who don't speak hardly a word of English that work back in the kitchen. And there was a couple other Chinese restaurants here. And they literally, I talked to this one lady who was an indentured servant to the people of the restaurant. And she was there and she got in trouble. She got transferred to another Chinese restaurant because I used to go in there about 2 or 3 times a week and I'd always chat with her and hi, how you doing? She was a really nice lady. And so, and I was single, but at the time I was just, looking for conversation. And so the manager come over one time and he blessed her out for talking. He said, "You no more talk to her," And I was like, "What?" I was just being polite. And I went in there a couple of days later, and she never showed up in that restaurant again. But she was telling me that she was an indentured servant for so many years, and because they got her into the United States and whatever else, so she was working for free and lived in a room, and until her payment was up. So I'm thinking to myself now, that's been about 20 years ago, but that's not the point. It was here then. And you think it's gone away? Nah. The Mexicans do it all the time in the restaurants down here. They come in and work 6, 8 months. Most of the money goes to the person who brought them here. They earn money, send it back across the line, blah, blah, blah. And then in 6 to 8 months, those folks go back, and then there's a whole new section of folks that come in and working in the kitchens. And because I used to go to these and I used to do work for these folks, with refrigerators and things and leaky ceilings, whatever, making signs or painting something. So I knew some of these folks rather intimately in that, and I used to go do puppet shows for them privately on the weekends. They'd invite me over, and they'd have all these Mexican folks from all these different restaurants would come together. And so that's how I knew what was going on within the Mexican community. And if a certain ringtone went off, they all knew that ICE was nearby, and they would all just disappear. It was amazing. But anyway, because most of them were undocumented and had been here for years, But there's this underground system, and there are the folks that come over here, and they're not near as indentured as the Chinese, okay? But they still get only half as much pay because the owner is taking the chance by allowing them to work in their kitchen, which sort of makes sense. But it's so much, even at half pay, it's so much more money that they can earn here than they can in Mexico, that it's worth walking across the desert for, which is just ridiculous. But anyway. So, and this has been going down here in the South for the last 25, 30 years. This is not something new. And a lot of people just don't see it. Well, because you don't see who's in the kitchen. You don't see who's working in the back kind of thing. And having been in some of these restaurants and done carpentry or fix a door, just all kinds of, stuff. I got to know some of these people, especially at the family gatherings, which was sometimes turned out to be 50, 60 people on a weekend at somebody's house, with a barbecue. And so, free food, free beer, free music, and all I had to do is provide some stories and puppetry for the kids and the adults too. So, it worked out great. Anyway, so folks, who say, well, you don't really know what you're talking about, Dave. I kind of sort of do. Now, I haven't been involved with these people in the last 5 or so years, but to the point that I seriously doubt that has broken down. Now, because of the lockdown and less business, some of these folks might have went back to Mexico, but they wanted to hire me one time to marry this guy's grandmother. And I was like, what? Yeah, you don't have to sleep with another. No. But, either that or she's got to go back. And I was like, sorry, Grandma, but nah, but it's been interesting. Let me tell you. Well, Grandma likes you. And if you want to, and I was like, nah, I can't do that. I don't even want to get involved in that. I'm a 2-time felon already because of possession of something. And you want me to fake marry Grandma so she can stay in the country, and then I'm going to get chased by ICE? Nah, no, sorry, I can't do it. Maybe on another day. But anyway, so this idea though, but there is this Mexican underground that I'm aware of and have been aware of for a long time. So what if the Mexicans said, okay, we're all going to take over? You'd be surprised at how many come out of the woodwork, literally, and that have been here working on farms and as carpenter helpers and this and restaurateurs. And but if they all decided to like come out of the woodwork, everybody'd go, oh, holy shit, where did all these Mexicans come from? Now, this is in South Georgia. I'm not talking about Arizona or any place like that. So here's the thing, though. In the same token that these folks live here that are not seen by most folks because they sort of live in the underground. They have, their housing provided by the people who are sponsoring them. And, they have jobs already. So they've got cigarette money and beer money and like that. They're able to move around, but limited, in that how they interact with other folks. But they're here. And when most folks say, well, I just don't believe there's that many here that are undocumented, just like down here in South Georgia. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And these are only the ones that work for the restaurants, and then there's the many farms around here. And to the point, I mean, no disrespect, but in the old days, it was the poor white farmer, the sharecropper, and the black folks who worked the farms. Well, it got to a point where both of them said, the farmers, when a lot of the farms collapsed around here back in the day, people had to sell out and so forth. And I mean, no disrespect, because it's really hard work. I've worked in the cotton fields and done that sort of thing, and tobacco and crop tobacco back in the day. So it's really tough. But the black community in general said, no, sir, massa, we ain't working in them fields unless you pay us a little more. Well, you'd only get about $20 a day, maybe, and nowadays they're paying Mexican foremen $15 an hour, where back in the day you were lucky to get $20 a day in meals, and maybe a place to sleep, like in a bunk house or something. But so what used to be taken care of by all us poor Southerners that needed extra work, I mean, during cotton season, you went and worked at the cotton gin. They still do that, by the way, which is like now. So during tobacco season, there were, you could work at the warehouse. It was only 2 or 3 months, but you could make some extra money. During planting season, there were farmers that hired out for cheap help to, plant tobacco seeds and make hotbeds, and then you package them up, and farmers bought them and sold them. My next door neighbor up here did that one year with tomato plants and tobacco plants. He made a killing just from the sprouts, And but you got to make a cold frame, and you got to do. And right now it's about the time to plant them, so they'll be ready for the spring. So, but anyway, but all of that's gone now. So all where this extra money folks used to get around here has all disappeared. So it's gone into bigger production, and now there are a lot of Mexican laborers. Again, I'm not being particular, but it's not being done by those of us who have been permanent residents all our lives. And so if the Mexican community can become so strong, without a lot of folks understanding how strong they are, in the right circumstances, why couldn't the Chinese do the same thing, is my point. Okay. So is it possible? Well, I don't think that the Mexicans are going to want to start war with us, because they seriously made too many friends down here. And it's the government and the policies. Seriously, a lot of these folks would have green cards if it weren't so hard to apply for one and do all these things. So it in a lot of ways, it is the government's fault. And they come and go and have to, they die in the desert, and all the coyotes and all the money that's being lost there, and the humans that are being trafficked for all kinds of reasons. My one friend, his name was Juan. I'm assuming he's still alive. I've told this before, but it's the truth. He went back to Mexico, and on his return trip back, they left him in the middle of the desert. And his tennis shoes, it was so hot, his tennis shoes melted to the bottom of his feet. I had to help wrap his feet for it was all he could do to walk at all. It was horrible. And I was like, why do you do this, Juan? He goes, we make the money, we go back to Mexico, and, he cannot, they were coming up here making money and then would go down to Mexico for 3 months and build a house or start a business for the relatives down there for them to make money in Mexico. And so I found it very noble, etc. But at the same time, to put yourself in danger to come across the desert and get left somewhere, and then who knows who's going to pick you up, but anyway, so knowing these people on a one-to-one basis and what they will go through, and that's just for them to be able to go back to Mexico for 3 months and build a house or whatever, very interesting. So, but anyway, so why not the Chinese? Is that so a distant thought that couldn't happen to us? Now, I'm not supposing myself that we should all be terrified of anybody that has, that type of background. But over the years, I've looked. When the last time I was at Stone Mountain, which was a couple of years ago, I looked around and was like, man, there are a lot of Oriental type folks here. Just per capita of white people, Black people, Mexican folks. I was like, lots of Asians. Like, if you combine these others, the Asian folks around were everywhere. Not a problem, but that was in Atlanta, and I was thinking, So I haven't traveled to Atlanta in a few years, but if it was very popular then, okay. So who's to say if a congressperson or a senator has been known by the FBI to literally been sleeping with the enemy, then what's to say that somebody else in some other way, in some other place, it isn't in some way working for the enemy? You know what I mean? So, but anyway, that's my little tirade after 47 minutes. And hang on a sec. I don't know who they are, and I turned the ringer off. So, and if they actually know me, they can leave a message. But anyway, hi, Maverick. Ed, how are you? Ian. Yeah, Maverick, that's what they said. But here's my point. There has been some analyst, and I kind of sort of trust their judgment that they wouldn't have, not that they didn't drop the bomb, but that there were 50,000 there. It would have been more like maybe 5,000. Somebody added a zero, because to concentrate that many people, troops in one area, I mean, there's trucks, there's food, 50,000 folks. That's more than who live in this entire county. Okay. And so you got to stop and go, wait a minute. So somebody's punching the numbers up, but there are other folks who are going, oh no, that 50,000 was true. And I got to scratch my head and go, 50,000 in the area, but they bombed this underground, whatever. Now, my next question is, how did the Chinese find, build, or get into an underground bunker in Maine? Was it one of our old ones from the World War II? Now there are things like that around. But how'd they get there? What's our Coast Guard doing? Is somebody asleep at the wheel? Are they not like watching this shit? Well, apparently they were, because they dropped a bomb on them. All right. But so it's from the back channel. I hate to use back channel. The minor channel folks, they're split about 50-50 on the number. Now, some of these folks are saying they believe the number 50,000 is true for the area, but not at that one spot. Now, some folks will go, well, what's the difference? A lot. Because if they're concentrating seriously, I mean, I'm trying to think of what 50,000 people would look like, in northern Maine. underground and tunnels. You got to ask the question. That's a lot of people. That means food, water, toilet, electricity. That's a 5,000 people in it. Yeah, absolutely. Because it would be like one division or something like that, where 50,000 is like a whole freaking, like the first airborne. I can't, I don't know my military terms enough, but in that 50,000 is like an army, okay, where 5,000 is like a division kind of thing. All right, don't quote me on that, but that's what these intel folks are saying. They're going, no, we've played war games before, and that just no general would knowingly put that many troops in one spot to be destroyed. They would want to spread them out. So, and that to me, of the stories that are out there, I scratch my head and go, that makes sense. Having been up along the border up there, not a lot, but having been there and driven across Canada several times and all that, I'm like, okay, I could, but it that kind of movement now. I've not been to northern Maine, but Nova Scotia and them folks up there, are they not paying attention? I seriously doubt that the folks in Nova Scotia um, or Maine, with lobsters and all that, would like not notice a bunch of boats and vessels and people moving in, and where's the food coming from, and um, but if the governor and certain folks have been compromised, then you'd go, well, this is sort of like an inside job, then, ain't it? So it makes the idea of a coup against the presidency a little bit more like, wait a minute now. Um, Trump cut off ties with China and said, y'all step up to the plate, where Biden was for the Trans Pacific Partnership Act. So who's being favored in this situation? It would, I mean, yes or no? This guy says no. This guy's like, oh, yeah, come on, come on, come on. Like Obama did. So, and late in Obama's presidency, he made fishing off the shores of Maine like illegal kind of thing. Said, "Oh, you can't do that anymore." Blah blah blah. Well, why would he want to keep folks in Maine, which is like, if it ain't forest products, it's lobsters and stuff, and from fishing. Why would you tell them you can't fish out there anymore? Well, it's a fish production. Or is it because there's some other activity you don't want fishermen to see? You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of like information. You got to scratch your head and go, how long have they been planning this? Is this really true? Could this be true? Well, if certain people had made laws and regulations to make it easier for it to happen, maybe we are in the midst of a China syndrome. I mean, there's over 1 billion of them with only 360 million of us. I mean, a third of them could overrun us, and I mean, theoretically, could overrun us, and there'd still be too many people in China. You know what I mean? And over there. So, scratch your head. Is it true? There's a lot of truth in what has already been reported. But again, some of the analyst folks are going, it wasn't 50,000, but they did drop a bomb and kill a bunch of folks. That part's true. And I agree. 50,000 people, I mean, that's like a half of a stadium of folk, feeding them, clothing them, heating them because it's cold up there. Wouldn't you notice it? Where 5,000 in any respect, under any circumstances, would be, that's a lot of trained personnel, and it would be more easier to manage as far as keeping things on the down low. So, but anyway, whatever's out there and whatever folks are talking about, though, I didn't really see anybody really talking about this. Yeah, Obama was in with China. I had Project Skyfalls. Richard, I struggle to focus once I okay, different subject. Um, Maverick, I have a tendency to agree with you on that. I'm thinking they're all over under my feet in Canada. Yep. Um, but this thing about the China syndrome, I find it like before I thought it was like there's no way that this could actually happen. But then, hey Deborah, how are you? Um, it's it's the fact that there and some of the governors, like in Pennsylvania, like that. So, what would be their reason, their true reason for wanting to go along with the narrative and back up? Well, no, JB won the election, right? Okay. So, and why all this other fodder? So, and why has Nancy Pelosi come up with and brought up on her own several times the continuity of government, which means that they go underground and they start doing stuff and they don't need no stinking law. So if the more I look at the situation, is like, well, stealing the election, well, okay, but an actual honest to God coup that is literally sponsored by the Chinese, well, no, this can't be possible. Why not? Well, look at all the facts that are actually there and look at all the property that's been bought up by the Chinese over the years and look how many folks there are. Not I've known some very wonderful, uh Asian type folks. And I mean no disrespect in that. I don't know what to call them, but you know, I'm a South Georgia redneck, so y'all can call me that, and I get it. But and I mean no disrespect, but to that though, I've met some absolutely wonderful people, and I don't see anything wrong with them folks wanting to come over here and be an American or whatever. But at the same time, there are other people that don't think like them. You know what I mean? I mean, because there's some rednecks down here. All they need is just a little bit to start shooting. And right now they're all contained. But if you said we was in being invaded by Chinese, holy shit. I know folks with, submachine guns and things. Oh my God. There is truly a Southern militia down here. And you could say that it's, being run by a bunch of, white privileged people. A lot of them are white. But here's the thing, over the years, though, because of military and other things, there are many black members within these militias. Why? Because okay, the black folk in the South was the enemy in the old days, but now, regardless, we're all fighting for America, you see. So the black man down here has proved himself, especially if he's been in the armed services. So he's highly regarded, and this man's a hero. He proved himself worthy to be an American, and we all stand behind. So with that said, the militias who were years ago were like, man, we're going to keep white. No, 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 no. They're inviting people in. We don't care what color you are, as long as you abide by the constitutional rules of the United States and by this, the state of Georgia. And so it's like, so where it used to be KKK members, that's not true anymore. You know, there are people from all races, creeds, and colors involved in the militia down here. And some of these guys have got bazookas and shit. I mean, they got RPGs. Folks up in Columbus, Georgia, where Fort Benning is, there's been over the years many like crates of things just disappear from the manifest, like a crate of AR-15s, a crate of grenades. They don't talk about it much, and I don't keep up with it like I used to, but there was stuff missing all the time. So there were folks from Georgia, in Georgia at Fort Benning, who was literally swiping American goods to supply the Georgia militia. How about that? So, but anyway, and there are places down here in the swamp. Well, they will all get together and do drills. Now, that's sort of my point about this. About if they think and Georgia's on the coast, but you know, off the coast of St. Mary's is a submarine base, and Jacksonville, NAS, and not far away in Savannah is a base, and Valdosta, which is an Air Force base, and Warner Robins up in Middle Georgia, south of Macon. So if they think they're going to come through Georgia, just saying, not that they couldn't or wouldn't try, they better think two or three times about doing it. Well, they're vulnerable. Nah, we're not vulnerable. The swamp's going to take care of your ass before you ever get to any decent dry land. And then we're going to nail your ass because we're rebels from the old days. And we don't just line up for you to shoot us. We're going to be hiding in deer stands. We're going to be in camouflage. We're going to be hiding in bog holes and stuff. You think you can do this? Okay. Okay, you thought the Vietnamese were bad about, you know, bungee sticks and all that kind of stuff. You wait till we start setting out bear traps and stuff, and you walking in through the swamp. And okay, we'll see who wins this one, you know. So, but anyway, in my respect, that's my 10 cents worth. I mean, if that were really true, you'd see this old man out in the woods setting traps, and you know. I've watched them movies and Deer Hunter and all that and stuff, and it don't take a lot to buy a bear trap or some other traps that will severely harm you, hurt you, slow you down. And if you're sloshing around in knee-deep kind of water, and what there are other kind of critters like leeches and you know, snapping turtles that if you've been wounded or something, will come up and want to chomp on you. You know, we don't have any piranha, but you know there are gators in the swamps down here. Not as many as they used to be, but you still have to contend with them. You know, stepping in a moccasin bed, you won't last long. You know, so and they do exist. So I hope the Chinese or whoever decides they want to come in through this way, and also through the Panhandle of Florida. There's a place down there called Hell's Tape where my friend Serge that I've talked about, who recently died of cancer. Tate's Hell down there is starts at about Carabel and comes all the way up almost to the Georgia line, up to around Bluntstown up there and Highway 90 and Interstate 10. But that swamp is so bad. I mean, the reason they called it Tate's Hell because a man went in there one time with his dogs at the northern end, and uh, coon dogs went hunting, got lost, dogs got ate, and he come out of the woods about a week later, 10 days later, and his hair was as white as a ghost. And they said, "Where have you been?" He said, "I've been through hell." So they named it Tate's Hell because that was his last name. So, but I've been in that swamp and around it. And let me tell you, you know, the swamps around here are near the same as they are down there in Florida. And if these folks think they're just going to like walk in here and do some stuff, nah, there's a bunch of rednecks in them swamps and they know their way around. They've got airboats, they've got little kayaks and stuff, and they can get from one place to another before you know what's going on. And you know, them folk won't know a thing. Now, here's the caveat to some of that. It's been also reported that whoever these folks were have some type of beam technology, that the aircraft that dropped the Moab was shot down, but there were holes burned through the cockpit, and that the pilot was kind of sort of like microwaved, and that they recovered him. What they could was the discussion, but that the plane had not been blown up. It was literally shot with some kind of a beam weapon. Now, I've seen one alien ship beam another one out of existence. I've talked about this over the years. So, in my opinion, if the Chinese or whoever were party to a certain ET group, they could easily, because I've seen it over my head, have some kind of beam technology. So, for those folks that go, nah, that's not possible, I just want to say, in my own seeing things with my own two eyes, that absolutely that could be, and we should remember that. So these folks are going to be relying on not just bullets, or let's just say they don't drop a bomb on us, they drop, steel, the rods of steel in certain places, and they. But here's the thing: we've got technology that we don't talk with people about. You don't think they don't? Just think about it, especially if the Chinese and the Communist Party want to get behind it and say, this is what we want. Like, look what, Hitler did in the Germans, in a span of, 5 or 6 years with controlled labor and this and that and the other thing. They built this massive, machine and machines and all these, so, and the Chinese got a whole lot more people than the Germans did. And the Chinese government's a whole lot more, quiet than the Germans were. You know what I mean? So I don't think we're getting enough. We're not sleeping with the enemy in the right ways. In other words, we're not getting any intel from them. And I think part of the reason is because that with the people who are coming out that have had ties with the Chinese government one way or the other, like our governor here in Georgia, they tried to get Senator Perdue in the same issue, but, and he's up for reelection. And yes, I'm going to vote for Perdue versus this other guy, John Ossoff, or whatever his name is. I just don't trust him. Don't trust him. Oh, he's all for this and that and the other thing. But, I don't know, but at the same time, do I think this senator running is he all on the up and up? Listen, if you're a politician, you got to work the system. You just have to, And has he voted on or against or not voted for or something, probably, and probably will do so again because that's how politics go. Will it piss off some of us? Yeah, but to the point. So now this idea, though, that how many people are actually tied with the Chinese, seriously, and who, whatever in their warped mind, they would agree to that maybe the Chinese have said, listen, we're planning an invasion. We got 3 times as many people as you. Now you can buy into this now and we'll let you and your house alone, or, we'll just blow you right out of the sky, right? Yes, Richard, the underground bunker and tunnels that folks had said was down there. And, that area is owned by the Rothschilds. And it was supposedly an attack against the Rothschilds, just by example. Crescente, how are you? Americans from Romania. Hi. Oh, blessing. Yeah, good to know that you folks are still alive and well over there as much as possible after all this time. Seriously. Hey, Crystal, tunnels can become tombs. Absolutely. Uh, yeah, they traffic all kinds of stuff in those tunnels. Um, there were, I jumped on board with the tunnel thing. I don't know, back in the 90s when I can't think of his name now. They found him dead from suicide with barbed wire wrapped around his neck. But, he was one of the early people that y'all probably think of his name, but he'd lift up his shirt and shows the scars where he was, hit. But to discuss about tunneling and tunnels and stuff like that, there are so many things that were done in the old days. Hey, Ray of Thoth, how are you? Yeah, they were serious tunnels. Yeah, from the bank up the road. Yeah, absolutely. Phil Snyder, thank you, Richard. Absolutely. But, when I started listening to Phil Snyder, and he's been debunked so many times over the years, but some of the pictures that were out way back when showed him tied to a chair with barbed wire wrapped around his head. And they said that they called that, on his, that he committed suicide. And that picture disappeared all of a sudden. But whether Phil Schneider was right or not, the picture of him tied, and it was not a Photoshop. It was a grisly, gross looking pic. It was nasty, and it was him. Face and everything. It was him. Purple and eyes bulged out. It was horrible. So, but anyway, but oh no, Phil, he was lying about this and that. But he had too much. There was too much information that proved that he did work for these people in tunneling, and him standing in front of one of those big tunneling machines and all that. So you have to stop and think and say, wait a minute. So they had to discredit him at any point. Now, whether he actually was in a battle with aliens or whatever, not so sure about that. There's conflicting reports, but he did work for an engineering company that put in tunnels. That's what we should believe. Whether the aliens got him or this or that, or whether there was it. No, the idea is that he was working with these huge tunneling machines. That was the most important thing. And that, I think, more than the aliens, was what they were pissed off with him about. Because the aliens were like, yeah. So we had a fight with the aliens. Yeah. It was the tunneling. That was what pissed him off, because he was saying something that most Americans weren't aware of, that there are tunnels under us all over the flipping place. That there is an underground FEMA facility in Thomasville that goes back to World War II because of all the things that they practiced down on the coast. Apalachicola area. I said this earlier on, but Apalachicola and Dog Island, that's the name of the place. Dog Island, St. George Island, anyway, the other place, Alligator Point. They were all used as practice for the invasion of Normandy Beach and other beaches as well, not just Normandy. But so they had landing craft here. There were Moultrie has still Spence Field. It was a huge air base, and they closed it down and went to Moody after World War II. But they still use it sometimes for takeoff and landing for the folks over at Moody for training. But anyway, so there were a lot of facilities around here that because of World War II, and airplane factories and runways and a lot of stuff. One of the only there's like 2 or 3 places in the world that make ball bearings, and that's down in Cairo, Georgia, where, by the way, the family of the Star Trek, Eugene Roddenberry, they've got Roddenberry Library down there, and Roddenberry Pickles, but one of the only very few bearing manufacturers in the world is down in Cairo, Georgia, down here in South Georgia. And so it's like, everything needs a bearing. If something happened to that plant for some reason, we would be so screwed, because until the stock went down, and bearings. I mean, all of the jet engines use bearings and stuff. Anyway, but to the point though, so it was stated years ago that Cairo in South Georgia, I was like, well, I'll be safe from here. And they were like, no, you're not. And I'm like, well, why not? Because of this bearing factory. If they blew that thing up, cars would quit and trucks would stop and motors would quit going and airplanes would quit having. And I was like, are you serious? And I looked into it. They were right, so, and I don't know if there has been another bearing company that has started up anywhere, but to the point though, there are these types of things that are kind of scattered all around America and around the world. But if you knock out a couple of these places, then you say, well, what would it take to put it back? A lot. You couldn't just start right up tomorrow. It would take you at least 3 to 6 months to get everything together. And if the people were killed, then you'd have to train more people and engineers who weren't used to making bearings and stuff. So, I think to myself, oh, please, I hope y'all don't know about this place, but it is. You just look on a map and places in the world for, there you go. So, but there are other places like that too. So, what if the underground got to some of these places and knocked them out? It would slow us down considerably, and they wouldn't have to necessarily invade us. They would just have to cripple us, you know, slow us down and let us kind of chew each other up from the inside out and then come in after the leftovers. And that's not really necessarily such a far-fetched thing because, as one reporter said today, he said people are being pretty civil right now. But if the communication lines and things really broke down and say, oh, the Chinese are invading, well, that would give some people who don't like blacks or Jews or whatever, it would just give folks a reason to want to go to war. Not just here in the South, but I mean, and I would think actually less because of some of the people that I've seen down here and met and traveled. I see me having black friends fighting beside me, not against me. I don't see black and whites going to war over each other. I just don't. Not down here. Okay. Now, you go up around Macon or something where there are bigger populations in a confined area. Okay. Atlanta, confined area, fewer, okay. I could see where there could be some race issues. People wanting to just get, we're tired of your damn ass from, talking on both sides. So blacks saying that to whites and whites saying that about certain blacks. And you don't think that if whatever hit the fan, that they wouldn't start taking each other out just because? Well, the Chinese did it, the Chinese shot him, he didn't like that guy, white or black. But the idea though so it would create an instability amongst ourselves. I think us Southerners would be kind of, us down here in this area, South Georgia area, and even into Alabama, that it's not going to be as bad as some people think. Macon, well, Atlanta, big population of different ethnicities and closed area, not much food, and they start spreading out in, Atlanta's this blue spot surrounded by the rest of the state, which is red. So these folks in Atlanta start spreading out into the rural areas, they're not going to get a very good welcome. And so regardless of what color you are, if you're from, where are you from, Atlanta? Bang. Where are you from? Macon? Bang. Sorry, you ain't coming on my farm. You're not coming into our small town where these, 20,000 people have lived all their lives and worked here and died here. You think you're going to come in and bye y'all. The rednecks are going to, set up boundaries for folks that want to go from bigger towns. Just saying. And it would take, local folks would be more organized than you'd think. For example, if somebody called me up on the phone and they say, Dave, we got some folks down there on New Bethel Church Road, and they're trying to overtake a such and such. Okay, be right there. And, we know where that is, where somebody else might not know. So we can take a back road to get there. We can take a shortcut. We don't have to go down the same. They would have to cover every single dirt road, every single back road, and they can't do that. So they could cut off a major thoroughfare, okay, roadblock, whatever, blow up a bridge so you can't get across it. But us locals know how to get around that shit. Even if we have to drive through somebody's field, we know how to get around that. So this idea, though, that can they overtake us? They could try, and it'd be interesting. But now this idea of this new type 3 virus that is supposed to be like, wow, that if folks get it, they don't just get sick, they're dead within 24 hours. Now, that's a back channel story. But you got to wonder because of, they won't allow this Invictrum or something that I was talking about in another video. Now it's starting to be talked about all across the country. Why can't a doctor prescribe for us a couple of these pills who will help us if we got the virus? And if we have it, it'll get rid of it. It'll prevent us from getting the virus. What? Yeah. So, but they want to shoot us up with something. So this idea of zombieism, the current report is, and I'm like, I'm just repeating this, not necessarily my opinion, but the story is that there won't be any need for zombies because the people who get the shot, and I've spoke about this, the people who get the shot will be carriers, so that they'll go home thinking they're safe, and then within 2 days they're dead, but they have taken it and given it to everybody else because they were injected with a live piece of the serum. And so there won't be any need for zombies, they'll just be dead. Won't have to get up and rise up from the dead. Because now, is this true? Don't know. Here's the good news. Lots of folks are talking about, and I've talked about this too, and I take vitamin D regularly every day. I've doubled my dose. And the other day when it was sunshiny outside, I had my shirt off for a little bit. It was a little nippy, but but vitamin D, there are certain things you can do to help boost your immune system. And people think they're getting enough vitamin D. You are not, okay? Please take at least a double dosage of recommended by whomever. If it's 1 tablet a day, take 2. You cannot OD on vitamin D, all right? The body will only absorb up to so much, and because most of us are so deficient, the extra pill per day is not going to kill us. And I would much rather have, quote, a little side effect from a vitamin D than to die of something else. So, but anyway, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of good news out there about positive things, the doctors who are speaking about it around the world, the studies that are being done. And so there is a change coming. So how we as Americans react to these idiots and these morons and what they're going to try to push on us. But to the point, though, who's telling us the truth? Maybe it is time for ET to come down here, good or bad, just to shake things up. I'm not saying I want bad ET here, but he already is. They already are. So anyway, I just wanted to get on here, and boy, there's 18 of you here. Blessings to all of you. Don't take more than 5,000 IU, bad for the liver. Okay. But here's the point. You probably wouldn't absorb it anyway, but good point, Barry. Yeah, mine is D3, is more soluble than D2. That's what I'm taking. A lot of mushrooms. Richard, I would only ask this, that the mushrooms that you do eat, find out where they're growing, because there's parts of the U.S. that are a little bit more radioactive than other areas. Just saying. We should just know where they come from. I like mushrooms too, and I use them all the time, but I can't get fresh mushrooms, so they're canned. But to the point, the RNA will change your DNA, and I'm guessing the reason they've been remaking the same stem. Yeah, well, here's the other thing, Maverick, and it's been on several reports. There are 3 companies, and only one of them is using the RNA. The other 2 are RNA free. They used a different way of getting to the basics. So not to say they're safe, but they don't have the RNA in them. And I can't remember which of the 2 companies, but oh man, I'm drawing a blank on names today, but anyway, so that is sort of what's out there. So there is truth. Yes, there's vaccines with the RNA, but there are also vaccines that don't. So, and we might suspect the RNA ones to be the ones we should really be worried about, but not necessarily. So I think it's up to us to check. Colloidal silver, I've used it over the years, and I honestly, for the price and everything, I honestly didn't see a change in myself to warrant that money. And then I had a catastrophic brain event, and I can't afford anything like colloidal silver now. But I don't know necessarily that. That it is as helpful as maybe like for myself, the local clay that is in my coffee right now, and the people, some of these Southerners who dig out clay and eat it and add it to their diet and stuff, it's like, what? Yeah. So um, I'm neither negative or positive on the colloidal silver. I think I would probably take it again if I could afford it. Now there are ways that you can like take silver and like a silver spoon and do this little thing, and you can get some of the silver off of the plating or whatever. And at the moment, I just don't have the brain power to do that. I'm having issues raking the yard, and just trying to keep up with certain things on a daily basis. And so I remember being into the colloidal silver thing years ago, and all of this is like a really big, vague memory. And for some reason, I was steered away from it. So, Whispering Winds, yes, make your own. It's easy. That's what I was saying. I somewhere in there, I've got information about how you do that. And but again, for whatever reasons, I just haven't gone back to the colloidal silver. But it's a good point to bring up, like for myself, why did I drop that? Or why did they like, I say they, the spirits kind of take that out of where I was headed and energy that I was spending on that. And I was going to make a thing. And then all of a sudden it was like all that information just disappeared in my brain. But I also had a catastrophic brain event and I lost a lot of information. I know it's sort of tied up in there somewhere, but I went from having, minor seizures to grand mal seizures and not being able to walk or talk or, drooling out both sides of my mouth way before it was time for me to start drooling, especially for no reason, just old age. And I got to say, when old age catches up with you, I always wondered why old people carried around a tissue to wipe the corners of your mouth. And for whatever reason, over the last couple of years, drooling has become more prevalent to me, where I have to go like this, like, where the hell did all that saliva come from? But anyway, it's some people get it more than others. But anyway, it's interesting that in older age, there's like a little puddle on the pillow, like, what the hell am I drooling for? But anyway, side note, clay is good. Yeah. And I've got white clay in the bottom of, well, and red clay too, because a piece of red clay fell off into the well. But the white clay, the pipe clay, what they call around here, fuller's earth. And when it's dried, it turns into kitty litter and oil dry. I tried the silver just out of curiosity and noticed my acidity problem disappeared. So I started making my own. Never had acid in 10 years now. That's very interesting. But here's something also too, that by taking some vinegar and adding it to your system, like a lot of folks down here, there was like Uncle Joe's miracle elixir, and you could buy it by the gallon, and it was basically what he said was pure water. Now it came out of this deep well, which is probably good water, but that. And he was mixing so much vinegar in with it, and he was selling it for like $30 a gallon. And people were going, "What? The hell with this? I'll make my own." So a glass of water and a cap full of a little bit of, apple cider vinegar in there and stir it up and chunk it down. But there are other ways also to modify your pH factor. which is a good thing. You know, if you're in the low zone, by all means, take something to help get your pH up. Now, for me, I always add a little pinch of baking soda to making coffee, and I mean it's just a little pinch, but it helps take the some of the acid taste out of the coffee. But I'm also knowing that I'm sort of balancing, even though I shouldn't be drinking a pot of coffee a day. What else am I going to do, right? But I could drink tea anyway. But to the point that I'm trying to balance some of that out right from the get go. And there are times when I just feel a little down. I just take a pinch and put it in a glass of water, stir it up, and drink the baking soda. Now you got to make sure that the baking soda is not pet type or something like that. You got to make sure it's baking soda you can use in baking. But to the point though, so there are a lot. The old timers around here also took turpentine, straight out of the bottle turpentine. And you used to be able to buy it at the local pharmacies, you know. And I have gotten in, I need to do this again, by the way, for myself, a remembering for me. Let me put a little notepad in there. I'd go down in my backwoods and find a pine tree that's got a sore on it, and all this, you know, sap and stuff that's oozing out is turpentine. Basically, it's hardened. The rosin is dried turpentine. So, you know, you just take a piece of that and, you know, it tastes a little funky, but just take a little piece of that pine tar and put it in your mouth and just kind of suck on it like a lozenge. It takes a little getting used to, but when I take it, a little piece of it, when I take it, I'm thinking what the goodness that's coming out of this pine tar and from this pine tree, although it may taste yucky, there's a lot of other medicines I've had over the years that are not as bad as this. So I take it as, well, this is medicine and it tastes a little funky. I'll get over it, you know. But anyway, so there are old timey things that people just don't even pay any attention about. But to the point about the acidity in your body, the more acid your body is, it's absolutely cancer grows, this grows, that grows, absolutely. And the higher you are to eight, at least 8 or 9, and some folks even talk about being 10 on the scale. And here's the thing: if you've never seen this, uh, this is tape, okay? And so you can put it on your tongue and let it sit there for a minute. And right on the side of this thing, it shows what your level is, okay? And this was a couple of dollars at the local health food store, but you know, anyway. So it's easy to check. So anyway, it's interesting. I have that just sitting there. I need to check mine too. But in all of these things about being taken over, here's one thing that we probably can agree on. They've got something up their sleeve, seriously, because of the way they want to lock us down some more. I mean, that Fucci guy, you know, that's supposed to be a doctor, you know, some of his latest news is that, oh, yeah, Mr. Biden is correct. We should shut down the whole country again for 3 months. Mask everybody in, close it down. That's how we fix this. And he's like on board with this, promoting it. And most of us are going, we don't see that this is true. So at the same vein of that, though, more people are standing up going, no, sorry, guys, we are not having in this. There are businesses who are starting to, here was the thing, and I can't remember what state, but businesses all over in the rural areas are opening back up because rural people, we know each other, right? I talked about this. And but then the bigger cities, well, personal businesses would open up, not just Walmart or, you know, the big box stores. But I think the state of Georgia, for whatever their reason, when I did that video yesterday about, you know, enter at your own risk, they opened up the state because they said, okay, You can open up your business, but put one of these signs on there that if anybody that walks in, it's up, they enter at their own risk. So people are going, thank you. I'm not scared anymore because I was entering at my own risk all along. You just didn't state it in any public way or make it legislation. So, and as crazy as it sounds, and what are their motives? The people around here are going, oh, good, I can go back into Arby's now. Oh, good, I can go in here now. Now, the Pizza Hut, they're still not letting anybody in the door, but they got a sign. So there are certain businesses that it's up to the proprietor, in other words, the person who's actually running the store and who's bought the franchisee. It's up to them whether or not they want to open up the door or you have to go through the drive-through, right? And but as this Georgia law has now taken effect and everybody's more aware of it, the smaller businesses are going to go, I can open now, because you're going to enter at your own risk anyway. And if I don't have a mask on and you come in and see I don't have a mask on, you're enter at your own risk. So you can holler at the proprietor for not wearing a mask in his own store, or you can enter at your own risk with or without a mask, so it's up now more to the individual. And I think, as crazy as this law was, I think maybe in a way it wasn't so crazy at all. It sort of gives the opportunity for the state to open up again, and around here, not many businesses have actually been closed. So does it really affect us folks down here? Not really, it has slowed us down from going to restaurants and places, but now these places might be more apt to say, okay, we're going to open a couple of days a week. Y'all come in. Anyway, would like to try monatomic gold. Me too, Richard, just for the hell of it. Yeah, there's yogurts too about Ian. And one of those little bio yogurts would help you return good bacteria if you're worried. Yes, that's absolutely true. And a little bit of yogurt every once in a while puts a live culture in you. And that's a good thing because so many people are eating such crap these days, just saying. So anyway, Richard Project, Skyfall's Whispering Winds. Ron Ray has a video making it. How to make the colloidal silver. pH balance is very important to pay attention to as well for his stomach and gut health. Yes. And for all your other health. For example, if your body is too acidic, there are certain vitamins that your body will not absorb because it acts like a block. There's a blockage in the cells. So you say you're taking all these vitamins. And oh, by the way, since we're sort of on the subject, I have talked about this before and I will mention it again. It's very important. If you're taking some kind of any vitamin that has a hard shell on it, if you can't scratch the surface with your fingernail, then you must break it open for it to become good. Centrum, all these others, and I've got an off-brand multivitamin in my bathroom here, and it's got a hard coating on it. And I'm telling you, take your vitamin, whatever it is, and put it in a little bit of water, shot glass full of water, and put your other pill with the hard case on it and drop it in the water. And you tell me whether or not you see a difference. The ones that were crumble or kind of dissolving in your mouth, the ones are good. But the ones with the hard coating, I've talked about this. I used to work as an assistant engineer with small to medium size waste treatment plants. And the first time I went to one, I saw all these vitamins floating around in these great big huge vats of shit. And I'm going, what are those? And you can still read Centrum or multivitamin or whatever on these vitamins. They pass right through the system and right into the sewer. And there are millions of these things floating around in the digesters where the poo goes to be, they will clog up, they will get together because they won't dissolve, even in a methane digester kind of thing. They won't break down And they will literally clog up some of the pumps. And this, they'll get stuck with something else like tampons, and they have to go in there and unclog literally this shit. But so do yourself a favor with your own vitamins. And the one that I have that's a multivitamin, I have to break it in half. And then the insides dissolve and leave a shell. But here's the trick with that. The reason they do that on the certain multivitamins are that depending on the person, the vitamins are so strong, they will give you an upset stomach. So in order to cure the problem with the upset stomach, they put a coating on it that literally lasts all the way through your digestive system and out the other end and floating in the poo. So will it do what they say it will do? Like people are taking all these Centrums and stuff with the hard coating on them. They're not getting the vitamins they claim. Are they in the vitamins? Yes, that part is true. Are you getting the vitamins? The answer is absolutely not. Pick through your own poo, or better off, just drop one of them suckers in the bottom of a glass of water and see if it will dissolve. And if it don't, after like an hour and you come back and it's still sitting there looking pretty, the answer is break it in half before you take them. And take one half now and the other half later, because it will possibly, if you don't take it with some food, give you an upset stomach or make you feel a little ill at ease on your stomach. So I keep telling people that, but I don't know if it's actually helped anybody in the long run. But I'm here to tell you, if you folks are dependent on some of these vitamins, do the little test with a glass of water. Can you put a dime in your water? I used to have pure silver dimes. The older the dime, the better, by the way, if you're going to do the thing. Call it beef and all the green vegetables has chlorophyll, where the chloroquine comes from. Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not saying about whether or not colloidal silver is good. Now, here's one thing that I did start doing, and I was like, well, that's sort of an interesting thing. I've got a couple of silver spoons and forks, right? And so I use them primarily, like all the time. So it was said that just the normal acid. So, I could take the acid that's in my mouth and just lick the spoon a few times, and that I would literally get enough silver that it was better than not. So I eat with silver utensils. So maybe I am getting a little bit of that silver all the time. I'd forgotten about that part of the silver thing. But yeah, I've got a couple of silver spoons I picked them out from way back anyway, and a couple of honest to God silver forks. And so, just rub it on your tongue a little bit, and the acid that's in your mouth is really strong. So, you can just lick on it a few times. Now, is that really true? It's better than not eating with a silver fork or spoon, right? But see, but to your point, Maverick, I need to go back into the colloidal silver because there was a time when I had all the stuff needed and required. And honestly, that incident that happened to me a few years ago blasted that out of my brain. So thank you all for bringing it up and revisiting it. But also, as I'm trying to remember what I learned back then, I have been eating with silver utensils. So, but to that point, am I getting enough? Maybe not, Maverick. But am I getting enough for me at the moment, along with the clay that's naturally in my water and so forth? So, I think at the point it's the combination of things. So, anyway, my dear friends, I had not intended for this to be a long video, but here I am going on 2 hours again, and y'all are still here. Maverick, Barry, Ian. Let's see. Let me go back up here. I always appreciate your participation. Richard, I don't want to, if I miss you, it's because this thing is like going like crazy. Ray of Thoth, Whispering Winds. I think every one of you has good information and to share it within us, because I do need to remember about the colloidal silver. I do remember that I had a whole thing was at one time I had the whole setup sort of engineered, and anyway, so I'll have to go back into that. So if I've missed anybody, my apologies. And for those of you who are sitting in the background, we love you. You don't have to participate to be here and to listen and to hang out. So the information that I dropped today, it is a culmination of, since the incident happened with this bomb in Maine, whether or not there are 50,000 or 5,000, just understand, think about 50,000 people and what it would take. Um, and 5,000 might be more of an honest figure for the Moab, but the 50,000 troops spread across the area is more highly likely. So they give us information and disinformation at the same time. So the 50,000, that number is true, but that's not possibly not the actual number that got killed, drowned, bombed, or whatever. Okay. Just keep that. I would be more worried that there are 50,000 people spread along the border up there than 50,000 in one spot, because you can nail them. And no general or any, and they'd go, no, we're not putting everybody in one spot so they can blow us out of it. That's the main thing. You wouldn't put that many people in one spot. You just wouldn't, especially in nowadays and times. And if they're trying to sneak around, you just wouldn't put 50,000 people. That's half a football stadium full of people. You know what I mean? The food and oh my gosh, the logistics of it is what some of these experts are saying. The logistics of 50,000 people just doesn't make sense. So I'll leave you with that. But the rest of it does. But now, to the point where people want to tell you, I know of a couple of channels that have talked about Florida and Georgia being, vulnerable. Let them try. Now, if they bombed us out of oblivion or did something to us and then came ashore, but they're still not just going to come ashore. There is a lot of swamp area around here. They're not just going to walk right up. They're going to have to slosh through the mud. A lot of mud, like 100 miles of mud and slush. Yeah, okay. And if we take out a bridge or something, to keep them from coming down the road, we know a back way that they might not. So, but the other thing that sort of bothers me, but we all should be aware of it, they've got these strange energy weapons and, sound weapons and lasers and things. Oh, they're not really true. Yes, they are. They are true. I've seen them in outer space use it from one to another. So why can't that technology have been swiped from one of the alien folks? And if the bad guys have joined up with the CCP, Chinese party, then, or CPP, anyway, you know what I mean. And because their goal is, they got 100, they got 1 billion people over there. Why not spread them around a little bit? And everything they've already been doing in the United States, with buying property and doing things. So with all that said, and with the information about ET being more present, it's very plausible to me that if it's true, and yes, okay, then, and the bad guys are with these guys, yeah, okay, their agenda is similar, yeah, okay, they got beams, that'll burn a hole through you, welcome to, welcome to 2021, welcome to the new century, welcome to the new age, but anyway, should we fear it? I don't think so. Because wherever there's a will is a way. So if somebody shoots some kind of laser beam at me, will it go through a mirror? Just saying. Will it go through a mirror or will it reflect back on them? So if they shoot these beams at us, can we hold up a simple mirror and like blast the crap back at them? or will it burn through a mirror? Anodized aluminum is really shiny, polished stainless steel could work, as far as some kind of bouncing it back to it. So is there a way to stop or prevent, or we'll find out. Back in the days when the Russians were trying to take over Budapest back in the 50s, the local people, when the tanks went down through the streets, they would go out and block the street from both ends and throw Molotov cocktails at the tanks. And they simply made the tanks so hot that the tank crews had to come out. And so they couldn't get back up or go forward. And they literally mimicked landmines by using pie plates upside down. So the tank crews would be going down a street and they go, oh my God, we can't go any further. There's a mine up ahead. It was a pie plate. So, there are ways for things to happen. And, the weirdest of things have happened over the years, like, cut out airplanes from the sky, look like real airplanes. And then they bombed this airfield and it was a bunch of cardboard. They did a lot of that back during World War II, called camouflage. So anyway, whatever's coming up, it's going to be interesting. I just thought that this should be discussed because I hadn't really seen anybody else having the discussion about it, about what could it mean for us. And living down here, they're going to have trouble coming through the swamp unless they got some special vehicle, but they're going to have to get it to the coast. That's the other side of the coin. But from Cuba or Mexico down here in the South, it'd be an hour or so flight and they could be dropping all kinds of shit on us over here. So I'd be more worried about, stuff going on in Mexico from our point of view and Cuba. But then folks in the Northeast, yeah, we figured California and them folks would go to the Chinese because so many have been here since before California was California. All the Chinese folks that came over to help build the roads and tunnels and the railroads and the mines and the this and that, a lot of Chinese folk came over way long time ago. And them folks have been here longer than some Americans have been here. So, they may have come from China, but some of us came from France and Germany and Italy and whatever. So, what's to say they're not American? But at the same time, what's to say they still don't have some original tie back to the home country? We don't know. We'll find out. But I continue to pray that each and every day, each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the healing, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the blessings from the universe. Each and every day when I get up and I'm fumbling around looking for the coffee and, got to take my little bit of Benadryl for my runny nose, I continue to pray that each and every day, each and every one of you, your friends, your family, all of your relatives, and all of your relations, past, present, and to come, will learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, and the blessings from the universe. And as that law of three I believe in, especially in comedy, I believe and still believe that I continue to pray that each and every one of you will continue to learn to accept and receive and to share the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the blessings from the universe. So with this little bit of 2 hour, oh my God, I'm almost too short, Whispering Winds, none have gone to jail or that place for crimes. Those will get out of the cards, never do. Exactly. I absolutely agree with you. Some of the things that some folks are doing, and we should write our congressmen and senators and say, we want justice. For example, the FBI has known for over a year now about things about Joe Biden's son. They've known for a lot of years that Joe Biden had stuff to do in the Ukraine. I remember it happening when it happened, when he was, the VP in the Obama. So it's like, they haven't told us, and they should. Simply because he was VP and the FBI didn't report on it, shame on the FBI, and those people should be held for treason or, sedition at least, in that, they withheld of information, away from the public that would have altered, elections, altered, we wouldn't have voted for this guy for governor in Georgia if we knew he was colluding with the China folk. So us in Georgia, this hits home to me. And I'm supposed to vote for senators in January, and we've got all this shenanigans going on. What's to say we're going to get an accurate, or should I even freaking vote at all? I'm going to vote, and I'm going to be there at the polls on the day of the vote. But they've sent me numerous things in the mail. Get your vote on now. Get your, vote by mail. And, I got two of them sitting over here. But no, I'm going to go in person and vote. But that might not matter either if they've got this stupid software that's changing every other vote or flipping things around. Just saying. So, am I still going to participate? For me as an American, I have to, because otherwise I give up on the system. So I have to try to participate, even if it's just the voting, because if I don't participate, then I got no reason to bitch. Well, did you vote, Dave? No, I didn't. Never mind. Shut up. Go away. And there are those people. I didn't think it was important to vote. Then be quiet. Well, what do you mean? Well, you don't have a dog in this hunt, as we say down here. So if you're not going to vote, or at least try, but you're going to bitch about all of us and who won or lost, and Trump should give up. No. With all the shenanigans going on in this state, oh hell no. Even if it was the other way, I'd still say hell no. There's shenanigans going on, and until we can straight out the shenanigans, it ain't nobody being president. We're going to carry over the guy we've got for the moment until we can straighten this mess out. I don't care if it takes a year, but we're going to straighten this mess out. If we got to have another election, if I don't care, whatever it is, but because it's the system that's broken. And we are, as citizens, if we don't participate, can't complain, or shouldn't, because you lose the right to that. If you don't vote and you can or could, but then you choose to dish everybody else out that did. Well, you voted for Trump, mamby-pamby. Okay. So we must participate if we want to have a dog in this hunt. If I've got something at stake and it's my vote. My neighbor went to the polls. His vote is at stake. Now, he voted for the other side this year, which is strange because a couple of years ago, we were on opposite sides. He turned Democrat and I've turned Republican. Interesting. But many of the neighbors around him, he's the only one with a, JB and a KH on the sign. So everybody else has got, Pence and Trump, right? So rural America, especially when you look at the map, is very red. So, but anyway, but to that point, people change their minds. My next door neighbor changed his mind, and I flipped off of him and went, the other. I turned Republican. So. But the idea, though, that whatever, it's not the party, it's the person. And some of these people that are running in Georgia for senator, I wouldn't vote for that Reverend, what's his name, because he invited Castro in and talked about how great Castro was. And oh, no, we ain't having that guy in the Senate. I'm sorry. Good for a lot of other, we can talk about a lot of other things, but him and his sort of leanings towards that way. No, Warnock, I think is his name. Do not want to vote for that guy. But if he gets twice as many votes as Perdue, something's up. Just saying, so won't know until it happens. But anyway, my dear friends, thank you all. Have a good evening. Stay warm. And I'm hoping that the sun comes out tomorrow because it was rainy and cloudy and chilly and a little on the dreary side today. But anyway, so something to think about. Whispering Winds, always good to see you. And Teresa, hey, how about that? I missed you earlier. Project Skype Falls, and y'all, I went down the list. If I missed somebody, we still love you. So take care. Be kind, be considerate. And above all, be compassionate, because there are folks out there that this stuff is messing with their heads big time. And we just need to, as much as we might hate it, our enemy right now may end up being our friend. So remember that. As much as me and my neighbors don't sit and have coffee all the time, doesn't mean that if we were being invaded, the three of us, even as we're all over 65, we'd be in the trenches. We'd be fighting for this area. We would be brothers in arms for sure. And there was a thing, a quote saying, "Brothers in arms are brothers forever." Interesting statement. So we love you. Talk to you soon. Y'all be careful now and keep an eye on strange things around your house. And for those of you who are from other countries, Romania and so forth, we love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I've got some other friends on Facebook from Romania. And it's one country that I literally would really like to visit. I'd love to go into Eastern Europe and over in there and travel around, but not get shot at. But those of you who want to come over here, I'll show you around, and hopefully, at least for now, you won't get shot at. We'll see what the future brings. Cheers, everybody, and peace out. Till next time, bye. TT.